DroneTalks is an online platform to spread ideas and to educate in the drone ecosystem. At DroneTalks, we discuss technology, regulatory, business and ecosystem topics openly with industry leaders to enable and foster innovation for a better future.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorenzo Murzilli. I'm the co-founder of DroneTalks and the founder of Murzilli Consulting. Today I'm on the road in Zurich to visit Auterion and to speak with Romeo Durscher, VP of Public Safety here at Auterion. Hi Romeo.
Lorenzo, welcome to our office. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Romeo, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What you do here in Auterion? What's your story?
It's quite a fascinating story, at least I think so. Born and raised in Switzerland, so it's nice to have my ties back here. But I moved to California almost 25 years ago with the big vision and dream to someday work on a NASA space mission. And ultimately, I spent almost 13 years working on a variety of different missions, including unmanned and then manned spaceflight. And exactly 10 years ago this fall, I came across this new technology, these consumer drones that at the time were nothing like they are today. And that captivated my vision and idea of what we can do with this technology. And I ended up leaving the space program and I joined DJI, spent almost 7 years there, really focusing on the integration of this technology into public safety, from your fire, search and rescue, law enforcement, to even humanitarian organizations. And along the way helped create some of the solutions that are today mitigating risks and help save lives. And a good year ago, I realized that my vision is bigger and I want to do more with this technology. I want to get this more integrated into daily life. And I had already met Lawrence Meyer, the CEO and founder of Auterion, and his vision and his concept and his thinking around open source, open standards, ecosystem, connectivity, totally captivated me once again. And here I am, first year at Auterion and relearning almost the entire industry because boy, on this side of the fence, it's very, very different. And so it was a big learning curve for me as well. And I get to live the next chapter of this vision and help Lawrence and the team's vision with my expertise, and it's been a fantastic year. I'm
now curious to learn more about Auterion, right? As a company, you mentioned Lawrence's vision, definitely a visionary like Lawrence from the very beginning, and now we are here in a fully fledged company, booming both here in Europe and then the US. Like, what do you guys do at Auterion?
We are creating the operating system for enterprise drones. And enterprise is pretty much everything outside of the hobbyist market. Okay. But that's very, very simplified. It's a little bit more complex. Lawrence, as the godfather of Pixhawk Autopilot, he developed the Pixhawk Autopilot in 2008 here at ETH in Zurich. He had already back then a huge vision. And he brought this flight controller, this autopilot, into the future, into the next realm of things. So it's today not just a flight controller anymore. That's kind of like a secondary function. It has become a flight controller autopilot, a mission computer, and a connectivity device, all in one. And that is the building block of Auterion. In fact, this is Skynote. This is what it looks like. It is, in this format, everything that I just described, Steve, the flight controller, the autopilot, the brain of the drone, the connectivity device, the mission computer. And now we can go to any of the drone manufacturers and provide them with a complex piece that they don't have to figure out. Why reinvent the wheel when something is already there, allowing them to build the drone and the solution around it, and not invest time, not invest resources in figuring out the software stack. And either in this design or then in a blueprint design where they can build it themselves and integrate it themselves. And suddenly we have an ecosystem. Because now it's not just one drone manufacturer, it's multiple different platforms, from smaller quadcopters to larger quadcopters to fixed-wing VTOLs. And it becomes the standardized way of deploying drones. And suddenly it changes your entire view of what's possible. And with Lawrence's big focus on creating open standards and standardizing things, now payload manufacturers, camera manufacturers, for example, they have an easy interface into the system. And suddenly we have multiple choices on the drone, we have multiple choices on cameras. The end user now can pick and choose what works for their mission. And in the background, it's the same user interface, it's the same control mechanism, it's the same data workflow, no matter what you choose. And taking this to the next step, to the next vision is, this doesn't just apply to aerial vehicles. This in the future applies to any sort of robotics. Now, especially in public safety, I can fly a drone, get an aerial perspective. I can send in a ground unit with other measurement devices that are all connected, all under one standard. This is an amazing vision that is now becoming reality.
Fantastic. So what you are telling me is that if I am a drone manufacturer today and I want to integrate the Skynaut with my, let's say, hardware platform, that's out of the box, or how much do I need to spend of my own energy to create this integration?
Today, it's really about getting to market quick. And any drone manufacturer, drones are not easy. I think we have learned that over the last decade that it's a fairly complex endeavor to build a drone that does what it's supposed to do with all the complexities involved. And one of the big complexity is the flight control, the flight system, and the entire software stack. So we bring value to the drone manufacturers by already providing them with that solution. And now they can truly focus on their expertise and build around it and have all the open standard access points to the payload, to the radio communications, to the data stream, also enhancing their solutions. It's for manufacturers a really helpful cooperation, and they become part of an ecosystem. And I think that has been missing in the drone industry. Fortunately, I was part of the DJI world where we created a very big leap and lead in the drone industry, and there is no question around that. But it also meant that we didn't offer certain solutions to some of the entities that had different needs. And now we can bring in that ecosystem, and we can bring in more solutions and more ways for various entities to utilize this technology.
Still to this date, I feel that there are a lot of concepts, a lot of proof of concept tests, sandboxes. But you talk about DJI, you talk about Auterion, that to me are like at the next step. Like, this is not a proof of concept or an idea that has to be now operationalized. This is a product that is out there and it's operational. So I want to talk with you about what's your experience in applying the technology, so using these drones in the different domains. Obviously, public safety is yours, right? But tell me about the impact that these machines, through this ecosystem, through this optimization, through these open standard connections with other type of technologies, are having today out there in the field, both here in Europe and in the US, given your position of advantage on both worlds?
Yeah, that's a good question, Lorenzo. And you are a visionary yourself. I mean, you see what has been done and what the future can look like. And I have that same desire to bring this technology to the next level. When I came over to Auterion, I realized two things. Number one, how little I knew about the drone industry. And number two, how little others know about the drone industry. I sat down and I said, why is it that I, as somebody that's fairly versed in the industry, know so little, and why is it that others know about the same or potentially a little bit less? And I realized that we all have started to accept one standard and one capability as a benchmark, and that is DJI, because 80%, 90% of the market uses DJI, so that becomes our standard, and we start to think almost in that tunnel vision, not realizing all the things that are outside of that. And so I had to first spend a little bit time educating others on, hey, there's a different way, there's additional opportunities, there's additional ways of integrating the technology and the data. And that has taken a few months to seed ideas. And what I'm seeing now is those people, those entities, they come back and they say, you know what, you were absolutely right, there is so much more we can do. And the first 10 months of me being here at Auterion, that has been my biggest lesson, that we have to help educate the market, we have to help steer the conversation in sometimes a different direction because there's so much more to do. And then we are all learning together at the same time. So to put that back into how this technology is helping today, the challenge I see in not only public safety, but also inspection or construction or just mapping is there's a lot of learning that goes into a system, into how it operates, camera work, the app side, and oftentimes when you move from one platform to another, you have to relearn because it may be a different controller, it may be a different app, maybe a different layout, maybe a different process. And we have now started to bring those pieces together so it's a little bit less investment in training, but ease of operation. So that's number one. The concept of vertical takeoff and landing fixed wing platform is wonderful, but people have not yet gotten exposed to it. And that has been the second piece. I want people to start thinking of other ways we can use drone technology. Multirotors are fantastic. They will stay. They will do closer to the ground operations. But then we have another layer we can add, and that is that VTOL fixed wing layer that flies for a couple hours, that gives us high-level situational awareness, that provides us with long duration and further flight capabilities than a multirotor. And that changes the mission profile, especially in public safety, where as an incident commander, if I have a scene, I would like to know where my units are. I would like to see a high-level view, and I would like to see a lower to the ground level view, and eventually I want to see a ground level view by robotics. Combining all of that into one information source. This is tremendously beneficial, life-saving, time-saving, and ultimately cost-saving.
What's preventing what you just described to actually happen at scale, right? Because we don't see, at least in our day-to-day life, these drones flying around us. Like yesterday, actually, I was coming home and there was firefighting action happening in the street, and the cones and the guys directing the traffic, and there was no drone in the sky, right? So there are, I'm sure, agencies that are experimenting, are trialing. Some probably have even implemented drones in their workflow, but scaling is still not there, right? And what do you think is the number one limiting factor here, and what should we do to break this barrier?
There are certainly several items that prevent from a bigger scaling, but scaling is happening. In the United States, for example, there are, if we combine fire and law enforcement, there's about 40,000 agencies in the United States. And out of those 40,000 agencies, less than 500 have access to a helicopter or a fixed wing aircraft piloted by individuals. So resources are very, very limited. There are over 2,000 departments that now already have a drone program. So if we compare 500 departments that have a helicopter, 2,000 departments that have a drone program, we already see that it is starting to really scale. And the same is true here in Europe. We have entities in Europe that have 300 pilots and 500 drones, and they're operating on a daily basis. So to them, it's not a novelty, but even those departments have challenges, and those challenges can be regulatory, while a lot of public safety entities have gotten special permits or special ways they can operate these technologies, they still fall under similar privacy concerns. And while privacy is a very, very important topic, when you deal with a fire and when you deal with a missing person, privacy cannot hinder you or slow you down. That's the wrong approach. So we have sometimes regulatory challenges that slow us down, but those are being worked on. We've made a lot of strides, a lot of successes over the last few years in Europe, in the United States, to give tools to enterprise, including public safety, to operate in a safe way. And we have proven that the technology is safe. When we look at the millions and millions of flight hours that are being conducted with drones, and while we have had close calls in the past, we have not had fatalities. And that speaks to the current state of technology and our vision of integrating this technology into a UTM concept where we see crewed aircrafts and uncrewed aircrafts, and we have sectors where each can operate. It will continue to stay as safe as it is. Then the thinking. We have changed the thinking over time quite a lot. Drones in the beginning, when I started, was this thing that people were afraid of, that Hollywood contributed to the scare that the drone can see through my window or through my bathroom door when I'm taking a shower. And reality is very, very different. We have started to accept that this technology is here and it can be used for tremendously good pieces. Yet there's still a lot more we as an industry have to do to prove and showcase how valuable this technology really is. And then there's the technology itself that sometimes still is a little bit of a factor that slows us down, because what we do is not easy. And one thing I have really noticed over the last year to 2 years is a shift in the industry, where up until that point, we have been thinking about hardware. The next camera, the next sensor array on this drone, 5 more minutes flight time. Yes, that's all important, but at the end, it's the data. Except if you're doing cargo, there it is hardware that's being sent somewhere. But on 90%, 95% of missions today, it's about the data. That is your gold, your black oil. And if you have a proper pipeline so that that data gets to where it needs to go in almost real time, you have a tremendous influence on risk, on efficiency, on what you can do. And we are at that stage now where we get that understanding more and more, and that also accelerates the adoption of the technology. So these are kind of the hindering or the challenges that I sometimes see from fully scaling up.
You mentioned data, the availability of data, you mentioned real time, and I heard you before mentioning connectivity, right? So in your vision of this world, the drone is obviously connected, right? And the role that connectivity has into this pipeline of data flow is kind of crucial. Can you tell me, based on your experience, where are we with connectivity? We hear, 4G, of course, is today, 5G, it's also out there right now. Does it really make such a difference? And can you operate only with this? Do you need more connectivity, diverse connectivity, satellite connectivity? There is a whole world out there. And I heard a lot of controversial opinions about what's actually needed versus what's luxury. What's your experience with that?
One thing is clear, no one solution fits every single need or use case. So again, if you open up the technology, if you create an open source and an open standard environment where you can integrate multiple solutions and then the end user can pick and choose what works, then you bring a ton of value. And Connectivity, yes, in my opinion, is an extremely important piece in the future success of this technology, because we will be going soon beyond visual line of sight in a much more operational way, not just as a validation project. We're starting to see real-life applications already being done beyond visual line of sight. But that also means this platform somehow has to be connected to something or have some sort of autonomy on board that it understands what it needs to do in case A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on happens. We want to have data. Data can only come back to us if there's some sort of connectivity, and that can be the 4G, the 5G, that can be radio link, that can be satellite. Again, it really depends on the requirements and the mission, but the redundancy we need to take into consideration too. So the concept of me bringing a drone to a location is the past. The future is I may not be where the drone is operating, but I will have connectivity to the drone, and that connectivity will be between maybe two of my drones. They will potentially operate in sync. Look at the search and rescue operation. Why not have multiple drones that, just like people on the ground, take care of a certain space and double the time or triple the time savings by having multiple drones? If they're connected, they know where each others are. The data comes back, the data can be analyzed either by people looking at the data, maybe by machine learning programs that look for any clues, like, oh, maybe there is a piece of clothing, maybe there is a leg sticking out under a bush. All these things can only happen if we have some sort of connectivity. And that is, in my opinion, the future way of how this technology will be integrated.
You mentioned now the future, right? There is clearly a present that we discussed about, and there is the future. And I can feel from the way you're talking, like it's the BVLOS, it's the automation piece, it's multiple drones for one pilot, or one operator with, or multiple operators commanding multiple drones with different roles. So automation obviously is important. Tell me, how do you see the evolution of our industry really in the next 5 or 10 years? When do you think these different pieces will be unlocked? BVLOS, automation, multiple operators. How do you see that evolving?
In order to predict the future or have a vision for the future, you have to go back in history and look, how have we gotten here? And if we really think, in my case, the last 10 years, we have come from pretty much nothing to where we are today. That's a huge accomplishment, because there's so many stakeholders involved. And one of that stakeholder is a government entity. And it always takes time for regulatory environments to open up. And oftentimes we have knee-jerking reactions, and we create regulations that hinder sometimes the progress, the innovation, the integration. But yet, looking back even 5 years, a lot has happened, including positive regulatory environments that have allowed us to get to this place even quicker than I anticipated. Now, looking forward, a lot is going to change. Our deploying methodology is going to change, for one. Like I mentioned, it's not about bringing the drone to the site. It's either already there or it's coming from somewhere. It's not me on the sticks operating this drone. It is autonomously doing what it's supposed to do. That means it needs to learn what it is that's important. If it's an inspection of a cell tower, it will learn what are the items that are of interest to the inspector, and how do I navigate around so I get those different views. If it's for search and rescue, it will learn what's the best flight path for a certain environment with a certain payload, and all the data. So that piece, there's been tremendous advances that have been made, and where we are today, I mean, we can do most of all of these things already, including beyond visual line of sight. Technology is not the piece that's slowing it down. And then there is the community factor. How do we as regular people see this technology? And that will also change. Because if we look globally right now, we are at over 800 lives that have been saved, documented cases where a life has been saved because of a drone. The real number is much higher. There are many undocumented cases out there. But those are 800 individuals that are still with us today. Those are thousands of friends and family members that still have their colleagues with them. The economical impact just from that alone is tremendous. And more people are seeing how this technology is helping them in their jobs. And they will more favorably look the jobs that are being created because of this. It's amazing. Like everything you see here, 10 years didn't exist. My job didn't exist 10 years ago. And the jobs that we are looking for in 5 years, we don't even know what that will look like. There's 100,000 jobs in the next 2 to 3 years that will be created, that most of it we don't even know what the requirements are. That is so exciting. And it's also a huge challenge. But by the proper communications with industry, entities that create regulatory environments, the public, end users, and other manufacturers of drones and payloads and software, if we work together, these are small obstacles that we can overcome. So 5 years from now, I think we will have a drone flying around us, capturing our inner view from different perspectives, making it more intuitive, making it more interesting for people to watch. And nobody is steering that drone. And in 5 years from now, if there is a fire in Zurich, that drone will launch from a hub, will arrive at that fire before the fire units arrive, already give situational awareness, potentially already do life-saving tasks. This is not science fiction. This is really about to happen, and I am excited.
Telling you, you got me excited too. I mean, this is a really fascinating future, and I think we all want to be part of that, right, in a way or another. So, Romeo, thank you very much for your time. This was, again, exciting, fascinating. So thank you again, and thank you for the hospitality.
Thank you, Lorenzo, and thank you for bringing content to the people. I think that education piece, that is a hugely important part of the future success of the technology and the industry. So thank you for all your efforts.
Brought to you by DroneTalks Online, a platform designed to spread ideas and educate in the drone ecosystem. Search for DroneTalks.online to hear from more of our industry leaders and to find out how you can get involved.